There's always two ways to think about Jesus' teaching, and I try to make sure that we do both. The first, most obvious approach is that Jesus is teaching us about our relationship with the Father's relationship with us. He's teaching us about his Father, about our God. But the second is that he's teaching us about our mission, because our mission is to be the Father's presence, embodied, incarnate in the world, that we're to make the Father's love concretely present in our world. And so whenever we learn about the Father, we also learn about our mission. This Sunday, we're invited to reflect on the sower that scatters the seed across a variety of different soils. And I think we've thought about that from our perspective many times already, right? We consider regularly what kind of soil we are and whether or not the seed that the Father plants in us, the Word, is fruitful. Whether it's choked off by thorns or whether, we've thought through that, I think, many times. But we should also look at this from the Father's perspective and see what that teaches us about our mission. And we can't help but notice the extravagance, the generosity of God in this story. Like every farmer in Palestine and in Iowa is scratching their head saying, why would anybody throw good seed on the path? Why would anybody sow good seed among briars? Why would anybody bother to plant soil that isn't deep enough to grow? And so there's something to the story, something very important to the story there. And it's a running theme about our God, that he is generous beyond reason, that love has reasons that don't always make sense. And in love, he gives opportunity generously and works and hopes for the best possible results for all. And for us, maybe to recognize that that is an important part of our mission, this sense of generosity. It's important, I think, not to get confused with some of the preaching around generosity that would suggest that we're richly blessed when we give. That's true. But sometimes we take that a little bit too literally. And there are preachers who would say that if you'll just give a lot of money, then we'll be richly blessed in return. And in fact, that's a good formula for the preacher to get rich, but not a good formula for the giver to get rich, because when I give of my financial, material resources, in fact, I have less. It makes my net worth lower. And yet, that is part of the call of generosity. And we have to see how this works. Where are the blessings? Because we're not actually talking about the blessings of material things. They almost don't matter. We're talking about the blessing of love. The love that the Father poured out upon the world in Jesus, and the love that we're still called to pour out. And so I could have more money in my bank account. From the beginning of my priesthood, I thought that 10 or 15% of my salary would be a good thing to be giving away. And over the years, I increased that to 20 and 25 because I found that I could. And currently, I give half of my salary into various charitable projects that I think are important. And I do that not to get rich, but to be able to live a life of generosity and love. And there's two ways, sorry, I keep going with twos. These are different than the other two. There are two ways to live life and generosity. From a perspective of scarcity, where I have to keep everything, or from a perspective of abundance, where there's plenty to share. And I found that living with a spirit of abundance, while I might have a lot less, I live a lot more. And I love living in that spirit of abundance rather than in a spirit of scarcity that would increase my net worth, but it wouldn't increase my net living, right? One of the most enjoyable things I did during the week, I had a drone that, to be honest, I really didn't need. I had bought it several years ago with the intention of using it here at the parish to get some video footage and things. Then I found that I have parishioners who not only have better drones, but they can use them better. They know what they're doing. And so I get much better footage by letting the parishioners do that. And I realized I don't have a lot of time to be playing around with little aircraft. And I knew that my niece both does and likes to. She's my niece and my goddaughter. And so midweek, having already talked to my sister and gotten all the necessary permissions, I drove out to their home out south of Houston and gave my goddaughter my drone. And from a net worth perspective, I'm out a couple $100, right? But from a love and life perspective, I am so much richer and enjoy those moments more than any of the others, not because of the drone. That the material things are just tools. Even the healings that Jesus did, who really cares if the eyesight gets fixed or the ears start hearing again? Eventually they stop working. Those were just concrete ways for Jesus to express the Father's love. And something in our love grew in that visit, in that gift. And I find that just to be life-giving and fulfilling. And in a perspective of scarcity, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have been like, well, maybe someday I'll need this. And it would have sat on my shelf until it became obsolete. But if I was able to say, you know what, like I know somebody who can use this so much better than me, and to find joy and love in seeing that happen, it's a beautiful thing. But there's more to this generosity of the Father. We've been going through our baptismal records, and we've baptized 140, 150 people in the parish since we started. But you know, they won't all be here on Sunday. And we're doing a little bit better here, but my kind of running average guess is that you have to baptize 10 people if you want one to grow fruit, right? To be fruitful, to become connected and involved. I think it's blessing and helping everyone. But not everyone becomes fruitful in the church, right? It's maybe 1 to 7 or something. And there's two ways to look at that, from scarcity or from abundance. Some people say, oh my gosh, what a waste of time. They're misusing me, they're abusing me, I'm gonna stop this. And they stop baptizing, or they stop trying to baptize, and then they'll just baptize a person here or there. Whereas my perspective is, if I have to baptize 10 people to get one fruitful, I better baptize 100, right? And we better look for them, and we better work this hard. And the fact is, I have plenty of water, right? There's no shortage of water. There's no scarcity of water or of God's grace. And to be able to share that freely, understanding that it won't always be fruitful. And that's not just for priests and churches, right? That's all of us in our important relationships. If we start to look at friendship as this need to calculate and see that we're getting back what we give, and we start to think that there's a scarcity of love, and we start to live holding on to our love dies. Friendships die. Whereas if there's an abundance, if I have plenty of love and I give it freely, a lot of times it won't come back, but sometimes it will. And it's that fruitfulness that isn't one-to-one. Because Jesus says, rightly in my experience, that fruitful love will come back 30 and 60 and 100-fold. And that's true of those who in marriage manage to get past this zero-sum taking from each other and give and love to one another, that when love is returned, it's fruitful. And to live in the abundance of knowing that I have been richly loved by the Father, that there's no shortage of love in my life and in my heart. I can give it freely. And even if it's 1 to 10 that comes back, or 1 to 7 that comes back, when it comes back fruitful and life-giving and worthwhile. And I would just suggest we can still spend some time looking at our soil and how God's love is fruitful or not in us. But don't forget to look at the mission of making the Father's love present, the mission of the Father's generosity that makes no sense. But for us to love at that level that makes no sense and allow God's love to be fruitful in the lives of the people around us.